Today we're going to be talking about the New York Jets and their top 10 football players of all time. A team that hasn't had a lot of success over the past 50 years, not since they last won a Super Bowl back in 1969. At number 10, I'm going to go with Jerry Philbin, defensive end for the Jets during that Super Bowl winning era. He was the best defensive player on that Jets team on a defense that shut out a dominant Colts offense, including guys like Johnny Unitas. But Jerry Philbin, two-time first-team All-Pro selection, multiple seasons of double-digit sacks, certainly one of the best defensive players in Jets history. At number 9, we're going to go with Nick Mangold, center for the Jets in the late 2000s. Was a two-time first-team All-Pro selection. The leader on an offensive line that went to back-to-back AFC championships during the Rex Ryan, Mark Sanchez era. Extremely smart player, absolutely deserving of a spot on this list. At number 8, we're going to go with Marvin Powell, tackle for the Jets in the early 80s. Jets had a very sneaky, underrated, and really good team in the 1980s that just never won anything. But Marvin Powell was the leader on that offensive line, three-time first-team All-Pro selection. One of the best offensive linemen of that time. At number 7, I'm going to go with Mark Gastineau. Very underrated player as far as all-time players go. Several times finished just second or third as far as defensive player of the year voting, but always in the race for that. People talk about J.J. Watt being the first player to have 2 seasons of 20 or more sacks. Technically, it's Mark Gastineau if you're counting unofficial stats. Gastineau, just one of the most dominant players of all time at his position. The only reason I don't have him a little bit higher is he did, as far as his contribution with the Jets, he was a little bit known as an empty calories player, and he was also not always considered the most selfless player, having to kind of just move around and do his own thing on that defensive line, not exactly create opportunities for other teammates. One of those teammates being Joe Klecko, interior defensive lineman for the Jets during that same time. Klecko, if we're talking about unofficial stats, he is technically the first interior defensive lineman to have 20 or more sacks in a season, not Aaron Donald. Joe Klecko was absolutely dominant during the 1980s and just does not get enough credit for how good he was. But he is number 6 on this list. At number 5, we're going to go with 8-time Pro Bowler Kevin Mawae, center for the Jets in the late 90s and the 2000s, all-decade team, all-decade team member in the 2000s. Had it not been for the depth of the offensive lineman position during the 2000s, there's no doubt in my mind he would have been first ballot Hall of Famer, according to the committee. In my opinion, he is, and I think he will get there one day. Obviously, playing on a mediocre Jets team during the 2000s didn't exactly help, but he is certainly one of the best centers ever. At number 4, this is where the list kind of gets tricky. I was kind of questioning having Joe Namath and the next guy on this list a little bit higher due to the fact that they contributed more to a Super Bowl winning period for the Jets compared to the number 1 and number 2 players on this list. But in all good faith, all good conscience, I cannot put Joe Namath when he, as many significant moments as he had for the Jets, he also had a lot of really, really bad moments. I cannot put him any higher than number 4. He is certainly the greatest Jets quarterback of all time. There's a good argument to be made that he would have been a 2-time AFL MVP award winner. Definitely changed the game. He's the first ever quarterback to have